practice and experience, and it's based on medical marijuana. You may have preconceived notions about what that means, but please watch the next few minutes with an open mind. I think you'll be astonished at what you learn.
So Charlotte has Dravet syndrome. It's a severe pediatric epilepsy. The seizures when they start with Dravet are status. They don't stop on their own, so they're 20 minutes or 30 minutes or longer. I think her first one was about a half hour. Every seizure after that for 2.5 years was a status seizure, and some were 4 hours long, 2 hours long, and at that point she's intubated in the ER, in the pediatric ICU, and medicine doesn't stop them, so that's, we went through that for about 2.5 years. We got diagnosed at 2.5 years old. A few times her heart has stopped during these, using these drugs, and I've done CPR on her, and a couple of those times, I just sort of let go of the fact that just to keep trying with her, and I said my goodbyes to her, and as I'm doing CPR on her in the hospital, kind of prepared myself for the worst, and she's still here, but she's been through a lot to get to this point. The doctor, she heard her history of seizures at that time and said, we have to pull this, her last med that she was on. Her exact words, we have reached the end of the line with medical options for Charlotte. And I don't know what to tell you, there's really nothing else we can do. That's when we met the Stanleys, and that's when we got started on the CBD. After 6 months of, I really didn't think she would survive the seizures, 300 seizures a week, roughly. Grand mal, tonic-clonic seizures a week. Just to put in light what 300 a week is, it's about 4 an hour. It's one seizure every 15 minutes. So, sometimes it was every 5 minutes. It just never stopped. And so to see her seizure-free for 7 days, she went 7 days instantly. And we've been on it 9 months, and from that 300 seizures a week, she now has 0 to 1 tonic-clonic a week. And so it's greater than 99% seizure reduction. And it's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. To think that she wasn't going to survive, and look at her now, she has a life. During that time, she lost the ability to walk, talk, eat, and really just participate in life at all. She couldn't do anything. She just sort of lied in my arms, catatonic. And I thought that was it. There just wasn't a life for a person. But here we are. I was looking around for, whatever I could find in any dispensary. I met the Stanleys, and they started growing a strain with the highest CBD we've found in the world. And they named it after Charlotte for our success. They named it Charlotte's Web, and that's what we've been using since, for the last 8 months.
This particular plant has 0.5% THC and 17% CBD, or cannabidiol, the non-psychoactive ingredient. This plant is so important. The CBD is literally stopping the progression of epilepsy. This plant right here is called Charlotte's Web, after our favorite little precious Dravet syndrome patient named Charlotte. And this is the reason we've spent 2 years developing this plant. The world doesn't know about this yet. We are able to treat Charlotte through doctor-approved channels with no psychoactive effect for Charlotte or any of the patients that are able to take this CBD plant. That's why we call this the future of medical marijuana.
I know that's insane.
A lot of people think when we tell them what we're giving our daughter, their first reaction is, well, is she getting high? And no, that's not part of it at all. That's a common misconception.
There's no psychoactive side effect. It's non-psychotropic. But the CBD does seem to have other side effects that have been amazing, actually.
Behaviorally, it's helped her. It's helped her appetite, and I can't think of any possible negative side effect that it has had. She's just experienced a better quality of life all the way around because of it.
That's right.
Woohoo! Yeah!
To be able to control seizures the way that this evidently is able to do in a condition which results in absolute uncontrolled seizure activity is unprecedented.
Because of this medicine and these high CBD plants, we have our daughter back. We have a life back. She has her life back.
Good job.
All right, now, this is another
The guy
story.
has a rare
Since I don't have a lot of
epilepsy
time,
diagnosis called Doza syndrome.
that's another little boy with epilepsy. I believe he may have some autism symptoms too. I can't remember. So, I mean, doesn't that seem kind of unbelievable? I was shocked when I started finding this out, like I said, a couple of months ago. And the reason I'm here is because I wanted to tell you guys about some legislation that's going on in the state of Kentucky right now. There is a bill to legalize medical cannabis for the state of Kentucky. It's called Senate Bill 43. And I can't believe I didn't write the phone number down here. It's down here at the bottom. But if you guys want to write it down, I'm pretty sure it's 800. Well, you know what? It's at the end of this other video. So I'm going to pull up a YouTube video here that a friend of mine and I made. We were supposed to have Suzanne De Gregorio from Louisville here today. She just found out she has cancer and she's got surgery in a couple of days. So she could not be here. But this friend of mine and I are making some videos. And we made one with her and her son in it. Her son's name is Alex, and he has a dual diagnosis of autism and epilepsy. He was diagnosed with autism first at around the age of 3, and then they found, that he also had epilepsy. And I was going to do this on my computer before we had all this trouble with the internet, and I had the links already
You
on
want the
there.
800 number for the messages for the legislature?
Yes, do you know it?
800-372. 7181.
That's it. And I think it's at the end of this video too.
800-272.
372
372.
7181. Okay, and this is Suzanne De Gregorio. She is a...
What I would like the legislature to know is that there are children and adults with autism and epilepsy who need this now.
That's not, that we've changed that a little bit. This was old, but this is Alex.
About 5 years ago, that Slate article started coming through Facebook feeds, and the title, I believe, was Why I Give My Autistic Son Pot. And like everybody else, I was just horrified. And then I read it, and I read why they were giving it, but I still held back because I'm not willing to get my son high. And I saw that it's not that part that makes it anticonvulsant. It's the CBD. It's not the high-producing THC. And that was just a done deal for me. I just knew we had to look into this. Alex likes to cook. He remembers all the recipes and where everything is in the kitchen. He knows where everything is in the grocery store. That's his favorite thing to do. Alex was diagnosed with autism when he was 2 months shy of 3 years old. At that time, he was high functioning. The person who diagnosed him came back 3 times before she would even render a diagnosis because she wasn't even sure it was autism. I was told by a therapist that he appeared to be a genius. But by the time he was 6 years old, he was severely autistic and back in diapers. And at 6 years old, he was diagnosed with a petit mal epilepsy. And that is hard to detect because you don't always see it. It can manifest as regression or aggression, which it did. And the neurologist thinks that probably started at 6 months of age, which is why his autism may be, regressive, or they think that's possible. Traditional pharmaceuticals will control his epilepsy to the extent that he's not constantly aggressive like he used to be. But since his epilepsy is pretty much 24 hours a day in some part of his brain, they will probably never completely control it. His medications have some side effects that are difficult to get around, if not impossible. The Depakote made him gain weight and raised his liver enzymes, so we took him off of that. And then we went for Tobamax, which is one of his current medications, and that affects his impulse control. So what do you take? Do you take obesity, or do you take no impulse control? One of the reasons I want to try CBD oil is the neurologists who are tracking it and the parents say there really are no side effects. They actually say the side effects are positive. He's more alert, he's learning, he's talking more, he or she, they're not having seizures. I'll take good side effects. I'd like the legislature to know that these are real people, real children. It's not theoretical. I mean, if they were in our homes and in our lives, they would see it, and they have the power to make real change for the lives of sick children in Kentucky, and I hope that they do. Yesterday, I was diagnosed with cancer, and so the clock feels like it's ticking differently for me. There's uncertainty there when you get a diagnosis like that, and I feel even more of a sense of urgency to set things up, not only for my child, but for children like him. It's hard for me to say what my definite plan is for his future because he's been all over the spectrum in his life, the autism spectrum, and I can't tell where he's going to end up. I just know that I want him to live his highest potential, and he'll show us what that is. As a mother, it is my responsibility to seek every safe avenue for him. I see this as a basic justice issue. CBD oil is not psychoactive. You can't overdose on it. It's just not possible. And it's really not much different from any kind of hemp oil that you can buy on the grocery store shelves in terms of levels of THC, which is the psychoactive component, very, very low. So it's hard for me to fathom why this is being made to be so complex when it seems quite simple to me. People suffering, it's working, it's safe, end of story.
And there's that number again, 800-372-7181. You can call that number every day. You can call it more than once a day if you want to. And just say, tell my senator, my representative, or you can say, tell this committee. Right now, the Senate Bill 47 is, 43, is in the committee called Licensing, Occupation, and Administrative Regulations, I think. And they may or may not even let out of the committee. I'm fairly skeptical on whether or not, this will pass this session. And so you heard her talking about CBD. That is one of the components in a cannabis plant. There's like over 80 of them. The one everybody hears about is the THC, and that's the one or maybe one of the ones that produces the high. The CBD does not produce a high at all. And so one thing, also I put down here about the hemp legislation in Kentucky. Last year, the state made regulations for growing hemp. Now, as you probably know, it's illegal at the federal level, but the federal government has indicated they will not prosecute if states have their own regulations. And so some people think we can get the CBD oil, since they define hemp as low to, the level of THC, that we could still grow. Now, regular hemp is not high in CBD. They've bred this, the Stanley brothers actually bred this plant to be high in CBD. However, the things I've read indicate that with autism, you do need a little more THC. And for a lot of other conditions, pain and, for a lot of conditions, you do need the THC too. But medical marijuana has been shown to help multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, pain management, arthritis. It's like an anti-inflammatory. So I think there is a big future in this plant, and I don't know if anybody knows the history of why it was made illegal, but it's very interesting. I'm not going to go into it now. And let me just, on these handouts here, this CBD Oil for Autism and Epilepsy Facebook page, Suzanne, that you just saw, is the one that set that page up. And what I also forgot to put on here, is that she has a blog too, which you can access from Facebook. It's called CBD Oil Blogspot or something like that. And there's actually stories. She's done a lot of interviews with families. Some of them have epilepsy, some of them have autism in their families. Kentuckians for Medicinal Marijuana is another Facebook page. And then I explained a little bit about CBD because you're going to hear that term a lot. These are the two that in the realm of caring. That's the foundation that the Stanley brothers set up, the ones that grow this plant. And you can see the video there, and there's also YouTube. I encourage you to watch that whole video because this other family. And then there's Alex's video. A 2012 Kentucky Health Issues poll a survey showed that 78% of adults in Kentucky favor allowing residents to buy and use marijuana for medical purposes if it's recommended by their doctor. The legislators think that nobody in Kentucky wants this. They need a lot of convincing. They need a lot of phone calls. And then there's there's already legal in 20 states, but all the rules are different. So you can go there and see the 8 states that are currently have pending legislation. If you go to this link on the Senate Bill 43, you can read exactly what the bill says. And then the hemp legislation, like I said. So I know that's real brief, but I just wanted, since the I don't know if everybody here is from Kentucky, the legislature meets, right now they're meeting for a long session, 60-day session. Next year they'll just meet for 30 days. So I think you're more likely to get legislation passed in the long sessions. So I think they're meeting now through March or April. Okay, also, I think we have a sponsor that's willing to do a House bill to set this up in the House, Mary Lou Marzan from Louisville. Also, regarding the hemp legislation, I heard on one of these Facebook pages that Jack Conway is our Attorney General, and he's the one that has to apply for a federal waiver for us to be allowed to grow hemp. And supposedly there's going to be an announcement from him tomorrow. So, and hemp is great, not just for for something like this, but I think it could really benefit our state. I'm pro hemp, either way. But if you have any questions, I may just go ahead and put this on our listserv so everybody. And then you'll just be able to click on the link. You don't have to type all this in. But anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks. I've got it. Thank you. Oh, Soya. Said they're going to talk about the autism support services that we have within the Fayette County Public Schools. And there is a new website.
Yes.
They're not dedicated to that. So, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
I thought we would have nobody because it was getting so cold, but
I know I think this is the biggest crowd that's been here.
Yeah.
And we're being videotaped.
That's right.
So that always makes me a little nervous. If you know me, sometimes I can be a little inappropriate sometimes, but not today. No. Dr. Shelton will see this. So,
thanks for being here.
All right. Well, like she said, we're Tanya and Vicki. We're both our exact title is Autism Resource Specialist for Fayette County Schools. This is Vicki's second year in this position, and she primarily works in our preschool and elementary schools, and I've moved more into working in our middle school and high school. This is my 11th year in this job. So there are some of you in the room, we have grown up together, grown up with your children. I was hoping to see a couple of those kiddos tonight, but no such luck on our part. So what you have is our brochure that we made this year that has all of our contact information, and it will have the information about the website, which is what we're primarily going to talk to you about. And kind of show you that, because you have access to that as well. So and so we'll kind of help you navigate through there. It's very easy because we're people, we're not technology people, so it's not difficult to run through that. I guess, my bosses, Diane Shuffett and Kathy Dykes, I guess I've probably been trying to burn their ears a little bit the past few years, just in terms of when I started 11 years ago, we had exactly 98 students with autism in Fayette County schools. And a big concentration of those students at the time were really like later elementary age. Well, fast forward 11 years, and now we have well over 400 students with autism in Fayette County schools. Much more than one person can do. And with this job, oftentimes we are problem solvers setting out to help with programming and whatnot. But as those numbers have continued to grow, I feel like I try every day to make what we do a proactive approach. Otherwise, we're only working with small numbers of students, small numbers of teachers, small numbers of families. So for several years now, I've said I want to have a week-long conference for our teachers, because any surveys that we've ever done with our parents, teacher training has always been your number one thing. And so we've really tried to pay attention to that. So we do now have a week-long Autism Summer Institute. This summer will be our fourth one for teachers, therapists, and paraprofessionals. And they're based on all of those evidence-based practices for students with autism. We focus a lot on reading programs, writing programs. We do a lot of behavior stuff. So that's gone really well. The other thing that I've been wanting for a long time, as some of you all have also been wanting for a long time, is another person to help me. And in walks an MSD certified teacher, preschool certified, and BCBA certified person. And so I charmed her. I pulled her from a competitor.
You really can't say no to Tanya Sturgill. Like, I learned that very quickly.
You really want this job, I promise you.
And I've loved it. I've loved Fayette County. I've been in Virginia and Indiana, and I hope to plan on staying here for a very, very long time. I'm just very impressed with what you guys are doing, and I think shortly after I was hired, I got invited to the Autism Institute. And in the 2 states I worked prior, I've never been to a training with that type of caliber of presenters and the content, the different areas. I was just floored. So I think Fayette County is really far ahead in terms of training our teachers, supporting our staff. So.
Thank you. Yes.
That happened way before I was here, so I don't get any credit for that. But I do present now at the Autism Institute. So.
Who are some of the speakers that have been here?
We never get the biggest name people that we've had really has been Rob Pennington. And there's a reason really for that. A1 is money. But my primary thing is I've been to a lot of conferences. I've seen all of the national speakers, and they're awesome. But I think sometimes what teachers really need to see and what they really need to hear is what other teachers are doing and what other teachers are doing well. So I have a list of criteria for the presenters in terms of you got to make it real. We really want to see videos and things that they're implementing. We've got a lot of great teachers doing a lot of great things, and so trying to get them to share. We're hoping over time the website will be another way that our teachers can show what they're doing. That works so much better than, well, it's easy for you to say you don't have my group of students and so on and so forth. So we really try to use teachers and therapists that work within Fayette County for the most part. So a couple of things when Vicki came that I felt like we could do and that to make priorities was one, this website. And so it's fairly new, it's fairly simple. but there's just a wealth of information, and we're primarily going to take you through that. The way the website is designed is based on this packet, this that you have here. This was another goal that we had, was to make sure that the programming that we're doing for our students on the autism spectrum was both systematic and systemic. And so trying to have all teachers work to the same level, to the same standards. So I spent a couple of years really looking at what other districts were doing in terms of district-wide initiatives. Fayette County's been involved in some grants with the University of North Carolina, with KDE and the Kentucky Autism Training Center. I've worked pretty closely with some folks in Ohio from the Ocala, just looking at what is quality programming for one thing, and how do you get it going with people. So what Vicki and I then developed was this classroom resource guide. It has 6 domains. We'll kind of show you those domains as we go through the website. We've aligned it with the new teacher evaluation system that they're using in terms of distinguished, accomplished, developing, or ineffective. So we use this in a lot of different ways. Principals can use it as an evaluation tool. We try to use it as a springboard for action planning with the teacher involved. We all think, oh yes, come help me. Tell me, what do you think I should do? But really what we mean by that is, tell me what you think I should do, and then if I agree with you and I feel like I have enough time and money, I might consider it. So what we're really trying to do is felt like this might be a better way to get the teachers at the table, and let's reflect on what we're doing. We tell teachers all the time, if a student is not making the progress that we want, that we expect, whether that's academically, socially, behaviorally, that sometimes we get caught up in, here's the problem, he can't, he won't, as opposed to what do I as an educator need to do differently in order to help the student make progress. So we're hoping that working with our teachers, using this language, using a systematic and systemic format, will help build capacity across all of our schools and across all of our teachers. So in a nutshell, we based our website, which we'll go ahead and get started and show you kind of on this. So what we did was, it's essentially, here, teachers, this is what quality programming looks like. So now what? We feel like to reach, a district this size with this large numbers, 4,000 students in special education, 400 students with autism, that we need to be able to have things at teachers' fingertips. More and more demands get placed on teachers. It is hard to work all day and then to go to a 3-hour training at night. Teachers and technology is really just at the forefront with how to do. So kind of what we've done is shaped it within this framework, and then trying to do a lot of the legwork for our teachers, for our families, to show, here's some general things just to get you started. So you have the exact web address, I think, on both of those documents. You can go to Fayette County's website. It is really on the staff portal, but that doesn't mean that parents don't have access. So you can go to it this way. You would hit the staff portal, kind of like you do for those of you who have older probably get on here for grades. And then you can proceed to the staff portal. Or you can type in the web address that you have. Autism Support Center, yay for the A, we're right at the top. And so you can, and that will always be there. So you can just click on that. You can also, if you just were on the main page and you were like, how'd she say to get there? You can just search autism, and the link will pop right up. I think it actually takes you to an article and then maybe takes you to the site. And that's the actual address right there. Okay, so this is our homepage. Basically, what the homepage does, it talks about the key features of what the website is. It also has a guide to a link to the resource guide and action planning form, which is this. And then it talks about what our goals are for the autism team and what the objectives are for what we want to do. We also hope to, before the school year is out, somewhere probably on this homepage, put like a student spotlight. We have some students, remarkable students, doing some awesome things out there, and we really hope to like do a showcase, student spotlight or something like that as we go along. So I promise Vicky's going to get to this. Look, I'm not going to show you any links on here, but under the first tab, which is referral and evaluation, this page was created, Amy Detchen did this, and as you can see, there are a lot of videos, what is articles, what is autism, video, what is autism, early signs. They're great. There's one of them that shows typically developing children versus children with autism and kind of what that looks like. We also have a video just understanding autism for middle school and high school teachers, particularly for those students who are higher functioning. Some of those teachers may not know kind of what they're looking for. Oops. We also, there's a great, in terms of response to interventions, there's a tier 1, 2, and 3, all kinds of great ideas for strategies and interventions, especially for when students are kind of in that referral process. We really like this, what the evaluation will look like, what the criteria is, and then who do I contact, which I think is really important for families. I talked to her as a parent, I don't know, right before the holiday break. And she was right, it was perfect because she got right on here and was able to figure out exactly what she needed to do. So that is awesome.
And this is great too. I've had this year, not so much last year because no one really knew me. I was under the radar last year. But some gen ed teachers emailing me and saying, I think I suspect, a student in my classroom who may be on the spectrum. I'm not really sure what autism is, but I think he has some characteristics. So I can also refer general educators to this website. And I think this is a really quick and easy, everything's kind of here. What's the next step? Like, how do you have that conversation with your parents, your school psychologist, and all that is on this page. So I think it's a great resource for all of our teachers, not just our special educators.
Exactly. And for parents too, and grandparents, when you're some of these videos, particularly for those families that have younger children, these couple of videos on here are really good because they give you some great examples of that. And we're going to show you some videos. There's just a lot, so we had to kind of pick and choose. But definitely, if you are new to autism, you want to check out this first referral and evaluation page. Okay, so then the main focus of where we spend a lot of time with our teachers is under the strategies tab. Okay, and again, we keep trying to link this back. Here again is another link. Okay, we talked about the 6 domains in terms of quality programming for students with autism. These are the 6 domains. So what we're going to spend the rest of our time tonight is showing you each one of these domains, and then just a couple of highlights of some different videos and documents that we have under there, and then you can look more on your leisure. So I think Vicky's going to get us started with culture and climate.
Yes, and I have my pink cheat sheet just because I have so much I wanted to share with you guys, but I could only pick some, so.
Do you mind speaking up?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I do, I'm a very soft speaker. All right, so we're gonna start with culture and climate, which Tanya and I put first because we believe it is essential to have a good relationship with the student, with the families. I mean, if you don't have that, and you don't have it on day one, it's really, really difficult to communicate and make good progress across environments. So this is really important. We stress it a lot to teachers, although a lot of times they just want, instruction. How can I improve instruction? And I'm like, whoa, we gotta back up here. How's your relationship with your student? Do you know what reinforces the student? Have you taken time to build a good rapport? And so those are the things that Tanya and I, were stressing. That's really just as important as your instructional strategies. So under culture and climate, just to kind of scroll down, I'll share with you some of our indicators.
And if you wanted, I'm sorry, Vicki, but if you want to follow along with kind of like what the indicators are, this is just page 2. So I think they go in order. So you can see what the indicators are, and then under each one of those we put.
Right, so we're not going to click on everything because that would take a really long time, even though I want to. But I'm just going to show you a couple of my favorites that I think are going to really pertain with you guys for families. So we have stuff on positive relationship with families, homeschool communication, multidisciplinary teams, and we are going to look at this document that I found. I did not create, but a wonderful teacher somewhere out there has created this, and she just compiled a lot of different ways for written communication. And I'm sure that we are all in agreement when we say the more communication the better. We really need to know about our students' day. And so we realize that, and our teachers are always striving to improve that communication. So these are just a couple different ways. I'm just going to scroll down really quick. Different ways that we can do it. And it really depends on, what your student needs, what's most important to you. So this is basically a circle rating of, how well the student did in these different routines or exercises. A log. I like this. My favorite center, special activity. And a lot of you guys are middle and high school, families, so you could really individualize this for your student. And that's what I love about it. So these are kind of just brainstorming, generating, showing the teachers samples of different ways it can be done. Challenges, best thing, challenges. A point system. And I like points too because you can carry over reinforcement. So if the child, gets a certain number of points, maybe they need to get, 10 or more by the time they come home. And, if you check it, get it out of the book bag, look at the notebook, they have more than 10, then they have immediate access to a reinforcer box or, prize box or something.
Are there teachers that are using this
Specifically,
and they're sending it home every day?
Absolutely.
Daily? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it depends on the family. Some families are fine with written communication once at the end of the week, just kind of a snapshot. And I think I have on here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they just send it home on Friday. And then I've also created, on the other side, a communication sheet for families to write back to the school so that the teacher really needs to know too what's going on if the student, especially if the student has seizures or is on a different medication or did not sleep well. Those are really important things for us to know that could really impact his day. So I thought this was really neat. You know, again, we're always looking to improve communication with families. All right. So we're going to go on to the next domain, which is environmental supports. And Tanya,
And in your handout, I think that's two. Yes.
Are these things that we should expect from the school?
it depends. Every classroom, every teacher communicates in a different way. And again, like I said, whatever is best for you guys. So a lot of times we do the written. Sometimes, especially with those students that are, you know, mom or dad or grandparents pick them up and drop them off, sometimes that verbal communication at pickup or drop off is enough for parents. So it really just depends. But we don't have one set way that it needs to look like because it does need to be individualized and appropriate for the family.
And in terms of this resource guide as a whole, which may have been what you're asking in terms of the whole packet or just the homeschool communication, I'm not sure. That is our goal. We certainly want to see all of our teachers be here and distinguished.
Right.
But we have teachers
all over.
Can I say something just about the communication?
Sure.
My son's special education teacher does send home a communication notebook, and every day in it they write what he's eaten of his lunch, because that's the most important thing for us, because that makes his day,
Right.
whether or not he's eaten lunch. And it also makes it a lot easier at home, because then we know how his day went.
Exactly.
Because if he didn't eat his lunch, he's not going to have a good day.
Right.
Right.
So.
Yes, food is very important.
So for us, that works out really well. And they tell me, like, how many times he's gone to the restroom.
Yes, toileting, especially with our younger students.
Yeah, and he's 6, and that's pretty much it. I pick him up every day and drop him off every day. So other than that, we get, did he have a good day? Yes, it was a good day.
Sure.
So we get the verbal too.
Right. When I was a teacher at our initial, parent-teacher conference, I would always ask, what are your priorities? What do you need to know? Like, absolutely need to know. And it doesn't need to be, like a written narrative, but it could be, check or, point system, but something that would definitely allow for the parents to have, that ongoing communication and be able to relate that, those important.
Yeah, today it said refuse to eat sandwich.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a good evening.
Okay. Well, if we go into this second indicator, it is environmental supports, or second domain, and there are, I think, are like 6 or 7 indicators, because we know for our friends on the spectrum that this area is huge. Certainly one of our foremost goals is to get all of our teachers very accomplished in this area. It's really hard to pick and choose from these links. Under environmental supports, what we're looking for is just the overall classroom environment, the use of visual schedules, whether that's picture schedules or written checklists. We're looking for how teachers transition their students and prepare them for just the regular day in and day out transitions, as well as bigger transitions, the use of work systems. Are classrooms set up for small group instruction, one-on-one, large group instruction? Are we focusing on learner independence and having minimal wait time for students when they come to the table to work? There's so many things to choose from. I think what we're going to show, I would encourage you to really spend some time here. This particular area too, it can be a great resource for you at home if you need some guidance in how to set up some strategies to use at home. Which one? Let's see. Do I see it? Oh, well.
So Tanya, yes, question about the environmental support indicator number 2 with the visual schedules.
Yes.
Does this imply that visual schedules are a requirement?
I have, no. And I'm trying to think, I've been in this job for 11. I've been working with students with autism pretty extensively for 10 years before that. You know, I'm trying to think if I've really ever met a student with autism who did not benefit from strategies related to organization. So it's really going to might look different. I guess if I had a student who was very anxious about things that were coming up and didn't want to know, I can't imagine a situation where I would not encourage a team or encourage the use of those organizational supports for just our daily living. I mean, you know, we all keep, whether it's, now we want it to look as much like everyone else's, so we have students on the spectrum that use the agenda planners that every other high school student uses. But in terms of, you know, what kind of we hear from older people with autism, going to college, the content was manageable. It was about organization, setting priorities, and those things. So, you know, I can't mandate anything, but I strongly encourage that, yes.
And so it probably has a broad definition. I mean, not a specific document or picture or
No.
It's got a lot of,
yes,
I mean, a lot of things.
Yeah, and I will tell you that here, these pictures right here, this is really a PowerPoint. I would encourage you to look at that. It has a huge variety of different types of schedules, whether it's like written more for high school students versus young, you know, schedules for students who are just using pictures to. So there is a wide variety, but even there's just not a student that I can think of that I ever said he doesn't need visual schedules, and I feel the same way about social skills. So I feel like those two are kind of those must-haves. But we'll show you this because it does have some home examples. This is from autismspeaks.org. So some of you, but it's just like a 2 or 3 page article about visual supports. You know, things like this can really help. I don't know why it's doing that. Things like this, get dressed. Here's how you get dressed. Here's what you need for that. First lunch, then the playground. First Walmart, then McDonald's. Here is an example of getting ready for your day routine. And this is just a small example. Are there any more picture examples? That's a very small example. There are a huge variety, particularly in these two, the visual schedules part 1 and part 2. I will show you, because we have a teacher at Lafayette High School that does use, has just a wonderful work system. I always like to give kudos. Her name is Ashley Reed, and so what she has set up for her student is a work system where here are the different work assignments. And I'm going to show you what some of those examples are in just a minute. So the student goes, gets the work bin, completes the task, puts it away, and then puts it back. This could be something that could be set up and transferred for a home, whether it's organizing for toys, bedtime routine, leisure activities. She's just done an excellent job with that. And I'll show you some of the cool things that she has put in some of her work test that you might be able to get some ideas of things that you could use at home. And you can ask about, any of these things that we share today, talk to your teachers about. We're really trying to work, we've done this presentation to principal, we've been talking to a lot of people about, what we want to see. So, anything that you learned tonight, we encourage you to go back to your school team and talk to them about some of these things. So here's just some examples of things. So this student might be highly interested in music. So a work task that she's doing is putting the CDs in ABC order. Here's a thing on clocks. I'll just kind of scan through these. A social studies thing of cultures. Sorting food groups. Handwriting. Filling out a job application. Journal writing. Sentence writing. Couple I want to show you. A math activity for learning how to use next dollar. Sorting person, place, or thing. Occupations. Opposites. And setting things up like this, I would assume that the vast majority of these tasks this student can do independently. So work systems are a great way to help facilitate that independence. Here's patterns, presidents. I was going to show you, there's one for shredding and washing dishes. So if you had chores at home, 3 chores that you wanted your child to do, you could easily, have 3 tubs, 3 pictures that say, wash dishes, dust, and vacuum. Yeah, right. If you get that going, you let me know. And age-appropriate leisure skills for middle school and high school students, reading magazines and so on. So I just really encourage you to look at this. There's some videos of classroom examples, like how a classroom is set up. And again, particularly these two just have a wealth of different ideas for visuals that you can use both at home and at school.
And I do want to say with the work systems, Tanya said that, typically what you put in the boxes are independent activities, so activities that the student has mastered. And what's great about that is if you can go and observe the student or have the teacher videotape how the student works through these work systems, you can set up a very similar system at home. Because how many times have I heard a parent, just say to me I wish I just had 10 minutes to do laundry and make sure that my child is safe and engaging in something appropriate. If you could set up a work system in their room or in the library or somewhere in your house in their living room where you can have a very similar physical setup at school, and you can even have similar activities, and it doesn't have to be academic. You can put in a coloring book in there, some fun Thomas books or whatever, and a dictionary if your child is really into the words and looking at the pictures. You can put leisure activities in there, but because the child has been taught at school, I work through this sequence. You can generalize that skill and maybe get 5 or 10 minutes of independent time, and that's a great way to generalize that skill too. And I've used that a lot where I've asked parents to review things that I have already taught the child, and it's because we only have so much time in the day to be working on acquisition on new skills at school. So whatever is mastered, I will send home for the parents to actually do. So Mondays they do maybe ABCs and numbers and shapes. On Tuesday maybe they're reviewing some sight words and some simple math addition problems. So there are just a lot of different ways on how we can use it both at home and at school.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I understand. I'm in Georgetown. Do you support the surrounding counties or just strictly Fayette County? Is there any kind of your type program that's
Well, Georgetown, Scott County is included in our co-op, so those teachers are able to register for the Autism Summer Institute, and anybody in the whole wide world has access to the website. You don't have to be a Fayette County teacher, anybody can. That's public, so they can access that. We personally don't work in Georgetown or go to Scott County schools.
And how would they know that you have this available?
Well, you can tell
You
me.
should tell them.
No,
do you reach out or send them information or
We
pamphlets?
We
or-
go through the Central Kentucky Special Education Co-op, primarily through Sally Miracle. She's the one I work with in terms of setting up for their registration for the Summer Institute, and they've been sent the website. Vicki and I also at the end of this month are presenting to at the state directors meeting and sharing the website. So the director, Martin, I believe, yeah. I did a training in Scott County, but it's been like probably 10 years ago. But he'll be there that day, so once they will all have access to that. So, but you can certainly go ahead and share that, and they can just jump right on that.
Any more questions? We can move on. Okay. Okay, so we're just working our way down. We're going to go into instructional support. Hi. So under instructional supports, I'm sure you guys know all about IEPs, probably more than you care to know about it. But we have documents, videos regarding IEP implementation. Lots under data collection, because that's really what drives our programs, and so that's important to have good data collection in our classrooms. Data-based decision making, academic engagement, and paraprofessional schedules. So I think I want to share a video. This is a fun one. I think it's a very simple video. But it's something that, I'll share with teachers every once in a while because I think one of, the challenges that teachers face often is we just don't have enough time to work on everything we want to work on. So this is a fun video to kind of show you how to just capture, and you can sometimes contrive these opportunities, but I'll let the video speak, and it's just a really fun, easy one to watch.
The previous example was one in which the instructor captured a learning opportunity. Now let's discuss how you can capture learning opportunities for your student. First, it is extremely important to be aware of when your student wants something. Then you can use this moment to require a response from your student. Once your student responds correctly or with an approximation, then allow your student to have the desired item or activity. In this example, the instructor misses the chance for a learning opportunity when the student approaches the whiteboard and markers. Let's watch again as the instructor captures this learning opportunity to teach the student her colors.
What color do you want?
Green.
Green, good job. We could color a flower with green, or we could color grass.
Then color.
What color do you want?
Red.
Red, good job telling me you want red.
Okay, so do you see how you could possibly use that at home? I know I do it with my 3-year-old, and the poor guy, we have everything in containers and Ziploc baggies and totes, and it's high on shelves because I want him to ask for everything. He doesn't get anything for free. And now, I've eased up a little bit, but especially with my second one, I'm not as good about it as I was. But it's really easy to kind of, if your student is going through the cafeteria and he's buying lunch, instead of handing him what he wants when he picks it, like have him vocalize, what he wants. Or if you're not at the point of vocalizing yet, have him point to what he wants before you give it to him. If your child is, in front of the refrigerator, have them ask for it instead of just grabbing it and handing it to them. So those are just really easy, takes 2 seconds to do, and it doesn't take a lot of training. So I just love that video. It's just a good reminder that we can teach really anywhere, and we should teach all the time. Alright, so moving on.
Just go back just a second.
Yeah.
I just want to point just to the instructional support.
Okay.
A valuable tool too for families, particularly if you're newish at, go back to the IEP stuff,
Okay.
it's a guidance document.
Okay.
And just right here, this IEP guidance document, that is the document that we use to create our IEPs. This is a great resource for you as a parent too, to know the components of the IEP, what should those present levels of performance include, how do we write quality goals and objectives, how do we monitor those. So this is just a great resource for you that I would encourage you before you go into that annual review where they're going to go over everything, that you kind of look through this yourself. I think it has a lot of good information, just walks you right through all of the steps. Has kind of a nice monologue, I guess, about kind of a how-to. So it's a great document for families also.
And it's 73 pages, so we typically don't print these out for families, but it's definitely a good resource to have, and for our teachers too. A lot of times we're writing IEPs over the weekend, so they've been really thankful to have this, at their leisure. You don't have to bring this document back and forth. Okay. We'll move on. Okay. All right. So next we have academic instruction. And we're getting close to 8 o'clock. I was going to show you a video. I can still do that, or we can do prompting, like a shorter video.
Vicki, we have until 8:30, but
Okay.
if you need to finish early, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I do have 2 sick kids at home.
Oh,
One has croup and one has fluid coming out of his ear, so it's just never a good sign when that happens.
I just wanted to make sure you
Okay,
knew.
okay.
Don't worry about us.
I think that was my personal timeline. We can do visual prompting.
Yeah, and then I'll show them that brief, that middle school and high
Okay.
school one,
Okay.
just to show that. We'll go ahead.
Okay.
Because if you have to bust out.
Okay. All right. Prompting is an evidence-based practice, and this is something that we train on a lot. And we're always talking about fading our prompts, because we eventually don't want, prompts at all. We really want our student to be independent as much as possible. So this is a good reminder, and it's a helpful tool to remember, what are the different steps and how to fade it out systematically.
Next example shows an instructor reducing the amount of a visual prompt when teaching a student her phone number.
Morning, practice your phone number. What's your phone number?
310-555-2245.
Very cool. High five.
Each time the student responds correctly with prompts, then the instructor takes away one number until the student can say her phone number without any of the visual prompts.
What's your phone number?
310-555-2245.
Wow, you're so smart.
Okay,
Let's go.
I'm going to stop that because you guys get the idea. But I've done that with addresses too, so it's really effective. This is a tutorial on how to fade physical prompts.
The learning objectives for this segment are as follows. 1. What is most to least fading of physical prompt? 2. What types of skills can be taught using these techniques? 3. How to implement and successfully fade this type of prompt. Physical prompts are often used to teach the student to perform new and at times complex motor tasks. When using most to least fading of physical prompts, the teacher starts by providing the student with the greatest amount of support. The amount of help is systematically decreased so that by the end of the teaching progression, the student should be performing the task independently and without errors.
Good job, you did it!
In this particular prompting sequence, fading occurs across 4 steps. For instance,
Put the block in the cup.
when teaching a student to follow instructions involving prepositions, the teacher will start by providing the prompt prescribed for step 0, manual guidance immediately following the instruction.
Nice job! Put the block in the cup.
As the student practices the skill without making errors, the teacher fades the prompt as prescribed in step 1.
Good job.
At step 2, the teacher barely helps the student perform the response. Next, after meeting criteria to move to step 3, the student should be able to execute the response correctly and independently.
Thank you. Be sure to contact me for transitioning to middle school.
Do you have any questions about that video or anything? All right. And our last domain is behavior.
We have the communication.
Oh, I skipped one. Okay, this is you.
In this one, I will talk just a little bit about, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have what's called briefs in some of these. This is from the National, we did a grant with these folks, the National Professional Development Center for Autism Spectrum Disorders. And they have 24 evidence-based practices. And so for each one of those practices, they have developed a brief. So you will see those kind of smattered all out throughout the website. Really, it gives you an overview and the research base. It gives you the step-by-step instructions of how to implement. It gives corresponding data sheets to go along with that. So from everything from discrete trial to using PECs, using video modeling, there's like 24 different ones. So in this area, we're really looking at the communication skills and making sure that all students have an effective mode of communication, that we are writing appropriate goals and objectives for communication, as well as, I kind of mentioned this earlier, this is still developing, in terms of making sure that all of our students on the autism spectrum, that we are working on their social skills as along with everything else. It's kind of the same what we were talking about earlier. I've never met a student on the autism spectrum who did not need social skills instruction. So that is a little bit of a thing that we push, and we've kind of mandated when we're looking, if I'm looking at your child's IEP and there are not social skill goals and objectives on there, then that's a concern to me, because that's definitely one of the hallmark characteristics. It is the thing that's going to impact them after 21, well, and before then, but when they leave us. So we have a lot of great resources on here. One of these, particularly for those of you who have older students, I don't know if you're familiar with this social thinking. This Michelle Winter has written a lot of great books. We try to use her resources. We've done a training on several of her things, so that's definitely something to look into. There's a brief on video modeling, social narratives, teaching imitation, peer-mediated instruction. Here's also a PowerPoint developed by Amy Detchen to do peer education training. This particular one is geared more towards elementary age. I've got a middle school, high school one that we need to add on here also. And then social skills groups, and how to do that and how to use typical peers. So here's a PowerPoint just demonstrating all about friends, talking about how we're the same and how we're different. Do you have any questions about that? Okay. The last one in the strategies is behavior.
Yes, behavior. We have lots in this domain. This is, I think, the most common reason why I get phone calls and emails is, can you please come out? There's this new behavior. It's really concerning. Sometimes it's, aggression. Sometimes it's, something a little bit milder. But a lot of students out there that are requiring some intervention plans. So our teachers just cannot get enough training in this area. So hopefully we have provided them with some good resources. So just reinforcement, what is it, in general, some definitions, some videos on reinforcement guidelines, tons of stuff on behavior intervention plans. Opportunities for choice making. We really believe that providing the student choices as much as possible will really help with decreasing negative behaviors. Because when you have choices in your day, you just feel like you have more power. You're empowered to do stuff that you like to do. You have more of a say in your schedule, in your work. So it's always a good thing. The more the better. Respectfulness, student interest, and reinforcement. And this is a biggie for me. You know how they say love makes the world go round? I think reinforcement makes the world go round. Because you can't acquire anything without reinforcement. Without reinforcement, you can't teach a skill, you can't maintain a skill, you can't decrease negative behaviors. So one of the things that I did too when I was a teacher is, along with the, all the general information like phone number, allergies, all that kind of general stuff, I sent this home for the families to fill out. And this is, sorry, I just filled that out. Did you just fill it out? Yay!
Good. I filled that out too.
What did you think about it? It's
there was a lot that didn't apply to my son.
Right.
Like all the edible, he doesn't eat. He doesn't want to eat, so he's
right.
a too. So cross that whole out. But it was all right. It was all right.
Material reinforcers. Some of these things we don't really think about trying with our students, but because it's on here, you're like, hey, you know what? That might just work, and it sounds a little bit strange, like straws, but oh my gosh, I have one kid that will work, till the end of the day, for different colored straws, different sizes, different widths. It's just really silly, but you would have never known if you didn't try these out.
I know, there were some things I'm like, maybe?
Yeah, not sure.
Who knows?
You're right.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah, and some are not, piggyback rides may not be appropriate in school, but, it's good to know, like, maybe, if the student does like that home, they might like some big type of rotor movement, reinforcers. So it helps us kind of develop and generate some new ideas. Social reinforcers. So lots of stuff. Things that you don't think about. Really strange things. And then I also, here's another one. There's just a lot of them out there. So this you actually get to kind of list out, which is really helpful too. Specific musical instruments, Play-Doh, bicycle. And even if we can't reinforce them with a bicycle after every trial, we may be able to see, there's a pattern. This student really likes transportation or vehicles, and be able to maybe borrow books from the library on transportation. That could be a reinforcer. So definitely don't want to rule things out too quickly. Video preferences, favorite snacks, beverages, books. And I recommend that we do this assessment at least twice a year, if not more often, because we are always changing in our preferences. Like right now, I want a hot cocoa, but I'm not going to want it in August. So it's those type of things that teachers may have tried out in August or September. But then, if it doesn't work, try it again in December, because it might. So this is really great information. And if your teacher has never asked you to fill this out, maybe go ahead and just print it out, fill out, and send it to your teacher. I think that's really good information for the team to know. And this could also be really helpful with language targets, especially if you have young learners who are just starting to vocalize, or maybe they're using PECs and we're not really certain what motivates them or what we want to use as targets. This could be something that I usually will get this out and be like, okay, let's look at edibles, let's look at sensory toys. So we're really helpful for them. Okay, and that's the last of it. Under the different strategies, did you guys have any general questions or specific questions? Any of it? What do you think? Do you think you can use this?
I have a question for probably Tanya. What kind of supports is the school, do they need to provide for like the extracurricular clubs and sports teams and things like that are offered after school? Does this all apply to the after school stuff too, or is this only the academic environment during school?
What we have to, if, let's say, we'll just talk in terms of examples. Let's say that your child is in the orchestra, plays an instrument, and that to be successful across a school day, they need to have the music ahead of time. They really need extra adult assistance to keep their, for whatever reason. And so they're going to have a concert at Singletary Center. Whatever supports the student has through the day are also those supports that we are required to provide in order for them to participate in those activities. Now, if your child wants to try out for the basketball team, we need to provide whatever supports that he needs, whatever he uses during the day that would be applicable to trying out for the basketball team. We provide that. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to make the basketball team. Does that make sense? So anything that is a tryout or audition, there are no guarantees. What is a guarantee is that we provide the support that is needed throughout the day. We also have to provide that to give them access. Just like we're giving, the IEP, one of those reasons is to give them access to the core content, the regular content, and that also includes any extracurricular activities as well. Any other questions about the strategy stuff?
It's not really about strategy, but there's nothing, my son has a lot of medical problems, not necessarily associated with autism, but there's not really anything in regards to kind of maybe that crossover. Does that make sense? Do you have any resources on how schools should be addressing some of that? I mean, we're actually kind of going through something right now, so.
Tanya, can you repeat that question, please? I think. Is there anything on here that addresses some of the medical issues that that students with autism might
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be students with autism, it's just my son has autism and he also has these medical issues.
Yes.
So, you know.
There is not.
Okay.
We stick pretty close to more of the straight, not that those don't impact education, they do, but we kind of stay within the educational aspects of that. Even though, that's not to say that some of the issues that your child has, does that affect their education? Absolutely. But in terms of check out this article or read this, we're
not physicians.
We're not doctors, so.
Well, I'm not asking you to be doctors.
Can I jump in there?
So we could not, like, how would I know, like, for example, we've surfed the web high and low, so we feel like we can make professional decisions about what are reputable strategies and things to put on the website. We couldn't do that with.
So how would you recommend the school to address a medical issue that, I mean, okay. My son is going to wind up with a colostomy bag, and so now we have this behavioral piece of him not wanting anything on him. But yet a medical piece of he has to have it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the autism is the behavioral piece of I don't want it, I don't understand it, get it away from me.
Yes.
But there's still that medical component of, so yeah, there is that crossover. I know you're not doctors in regards to, you know, is this something he should be doing or da-da-da-da-da, but there is a crossover, and that's why I'm asking.
And I think that where, in my mind, and it is that where that crossover is really not the medical aspects, but the behavioral aspects. So what are the strategies that we can do to help him better accept that situation? How can we reinforce? Okay, you know, I don't know, two minutes and then reinforcement, those kind of things. So, but we don't have like, these are behavior strategies and these would be good for medical. We could use those same behavior strategies to address the very thing that you just talked about.
And I think those are like the phone calls that we get, you know, where it's very specific cases, and we will go out and we will work with the team and come up with some strategies.
But you do get a lot of, like, that's medical, that's not educational, but yet it's direct.
It's kind of impact to school.
Well, yes,
Right.
and the example
and
that
so
you
we get that a lot from
yes.
the school, but there's not really anything to refer
So you need to, are you in elementary?
Yeah.
We'll call Vicki.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like we need to develop a behavior plan for
how to introduce
to how to
do a
introduce
task analysis and then break down like what are the skills that you need to acquire to get him there. But we probably can't get him there tomorrow, but we need to maybe break it down into little steps and get there eventually. But
So you bring up a point that I struggle with because, so I'm a developmental behavioral pediatrician, so I'm a doctor. So the difficulty is that kids are very complicated, and for things to work the best, it does need to be a multidisciplinary team. It's very difficult to be successful when you have different specialties or providers operating in a vacuum. So the hard part is how do you bring together the medical component, the educational component, and or the community component to work as a team to not only make sure you have all the bases covered, but that you also work on the specific priorities that are most affecting that child's quality of life. Because the difficulty that, from a physician standpoint, that we run into is the educational world has their sort of goals and I would call it agenda. Medical, we have our agenda, and then the parents have their agenda. The hard part is how do you get them all together so everybody's on the same page?
It all goes back to communication.
And culture and climate,
Yeah.
which is always what we.
So that's one of the goals that I'm trying to figure out how to develop, because I'm new here in Kentucky, is how do you develop a multi-specialty or multidisciplinary team around each child, so you don't have this group over here doing their thing and then this from over here. Well, I'm trying to figure out the seizures, the ADHD, the anxiety, the soiling, the toilet training, the restricted diet or appetite. There needs to be some sort of collaboration or coordination, and the hard part is, how do we do that? That's the $64 million question.
And we welcome team meetings. You can call a team meeting at any time, especially if it's something like this where, we do feel like, and that's what we want, is for all team members to be on the same page. Because we definitely don't want to go against what you're suggesting or what you guys are doing at home. We don't want to confuse the child. So working together to come up with a plan that benefits, the child in all environments.
Yeah. And we have a great school, but that's not, it is very segregated. Yeah. It remains very segregated.
Can I say something about that? Whenever my son has his IEP meetings, I always, first of all, a lot of times his case manager for Michelle P. Waver comes, which is nice because she's working on the community living supports end. And then I always try to have somebody else come with me too. The last time I had my sister come with me just to write anything down and make sure I didn't miss anything. She was able to say things that I had not mentioned about my son because she spends a lot of time around him. So, in that regard, the IEP meeting and the ARC meetings are very, very effective if the parent's willing to kind of put it together in a way.
And if it's
where,
like an hour and 15 minutes that they allot you.
Well, as an experiment, I'm going to, in the next month,
Sorry.
I'm going to 3 ARC meetings.
Good luck.
Yeah, and actually I just met with some of your colleagues, and it's interesting, but it's also sort of the elephant in the room. They're going to go, I wonder how that's going to go, because the potential for the school to become really defensive, because the doctor's coming, and sometimes the doctor is seen as the sort of the bad guy or imposing their agenda on the school's agenda. And once again, for things to work best for the child, there's got to be a collaborative process, not one fighting the other one.
Right.
So, because where I came from, with this much smaller state and a smaller, my little corner of the world had 5 elementary schools, so we had lots of team meetings and went to the school, or the teachers came to my office and things like that, trying to figure out how can you carry that over to the big city.
The big city. Well, and I can stay to take more questions. I just wanted just highlight these last 2 things on here real quick, and then we can continue. And I know you have 2 sick children, so I don't want you to feel like...
And a husband that's looking at the laptop.
Yes. Under training and events, we have the link to the Kentucky Autism Training Center. We had the link up here for the Bluegrass Walk that was done in October. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Autism Internet modules. I'm just going to take you there really quickly. You have to set yourself up with a login account. This goes back to those evidence-based practices. It also contains those briefs and the checklist. Okay, so you can go to this website, and I'm just gonna, but there's all kinds of autism at home, autism in the classroom. Autism in the classroom has all these different, let's just take differential reinforcement. And it will have an introduction video. And then it'll have like, these are the brief components. I just kind of wanted to show you that. Like with the step-by-step instructions of how to implement. So identify the behavior, determine the function of the behavior, identify the data collection measures. So there's just a lot of resources on here. It's free. All of the modules and access to that. I will say I've not really looked a lot at the home stuff. I usually go to the school. Go back one more. So that's the link to that, and you know, we do consultations. We try to get teachers to go to the modules for training. They can get additional training there as well. And this is just our Autism Summer Institute. We have the dates for our teachers. This just has right now in the archives just what we offered. Starting this year, the materials that the presenters provide, the PowerPoints and such, we'll start uploading it here so that anybody can have access to those as well. So that's kind of a standing thing as well. So,
Before you leave, can I say something else? I just
So we encourage you to go back to this and go through some of those things. We encourage you you have our contact information. If you find yourself struggling with a situation or an issue, do not hesitate to call us.
And let us know how you like the website. Give us feedback. We're always updating and trying to improve. Because this is the first year. We just, I think it was October. So we have a lot of room for improvement, and you know, we'd love to hear from you and how we could do that.
Well, and I think one thing, I'm glad that you brought that. The one thing too is like you all have a large connection, and a lot of people write into the Autism Society with questions and concerns that they have. When you see those, if you're on the ASBG and a parent, you know, perhaps writes in and talks about the struggle she's having at her school, it would be, what we would love to see is that one or more of you kind of respond to some of those things and let them know. Have you contacted Vicki? Have you contacted Tanya? Have you looked at the website? Because oftentimes, sometimes when I read those, it's like, well, wait a minute. She just said that you all know these things, and you know that there are some resources and things out there. So if you're talking with a family who is maybe new to autism, new to Fayette County, and they're, you know, reaching out to your parent organization for help, please, please, please direct them to us, because we know that every district has strengths, every district has weaknesses, and we want to make sure that if there are concerns out there that we need to be made aware of, that we're made aware of those, so that we can help in this situation.
Well, Tanya, if either of you ever wants to answer something like that and just, you know, post, you're welcome to post. Or if you want to just trip my attention.
Okay.
And let me do it. I'll be glad to do it.
Okay.
But sometimes there's a conversation going on and I don't pay attention to it. It's a question that's asked that I don't have the answer to, so I leave it to others to do.
And we've done that a couple of times. Diana's done that, I think, a couple of times, have actually, you know, made contact. But anytime, yeah.
Let me know and
Okay, that would be great. That definitely would be awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.